Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Tweet, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for the Vermont Department of Labor. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for another virtual town hall. Today, continued information on the reinstatement of Work Search. And we thank you as unemployment insurance claimants for joining us this afternoon. Today, we'll be diving in on some more specific topics around Work Search. So appreciate you all being able to join us this afternoon. So we'll be getting into a lot of some of the exemption questions from Work Search, if you are exempt from Work Search, and what qualifies you to be exempt from Work Search, as well as some specific information for part-time employees. I know we've had a lot of questions on part-time employees, as well as some more information on suitable work. Kind of what, when are you inclined to take work, and what kind of jobs should you be applying for as a part of Work Search, and really what kind of jobs should you really stay away from as you start to consider, the parameters around being inclined to accept work. So with that, we'll be on today. Of course, is Tuesday, May 11th, and we're going for about an hour. We have Cameron Wood with us from our Unemployment Insurance Division. As it has been, just some few housekeeping notes. Today's presentation will be recorded and uploaded, as our previous sessions have been, to our department YouTube channel and to our website. We have been continuing to add information and resources to our department website. That's labor.vermont.gov, and you can find the links either in the red banner on the top for Work Search reinstatement details, as well as under unemployment insurance and in numerous other locations on our website. In terms of how today's session will function, for those of you who have joined in the past, we welcome you back in terms of putting questions in the chat. For those of you who have not joined us and this is your first time, we ask you that you just write questions in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. It'll be a live Q&A. I am monitoring the chat from my end. I do have the ability to publish or dismiss questions based on the acceptability of them in terms of whether they are pertinent to our session today. Do see some questions in regard to self-employed individuals. Again, today's session really does apply more so to regular unemployment insurance claimants, but there is some concepts that will transfer to PUA claimants. But tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, we will be holding a specific session for self-employed individuals as well as PUA claimants. So with that, without further ado, I will transition over to Cameron Wood, our Director of Unemployment Insurance, who can provide just a brief overview as of some reminders for Work Search if you're not aware of kind of where we are in the state of Work Search. But we'll also dive into some of those specific topics as I mentioned. So Cam, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kyle. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cameron Wood. I am the Unemployment Insurance Division Director for the Vermont Department of Labor. Happy to be here to try to help assist you all in re-engaging with your work search efforts. This is, I think, our third or fourth town hall that we've done related to work search since last week, since the announcement, and really hoping that I can provide some benefit to everyone who's on the call. I know that we probably won't be able to get to all the questions or be able to answer every single specific scenario, but please just know that these sessions are also very helpful for us because it allows us to examine what questions might be out there, and if we're not able to answer them here in the webinar, we can at least provide some additional FAQs online. For those who've heard me over the past week or so, I try to start this out by just acknowledging, that we in the Unemployment Insurance Division, at least, are kind of excited to finally be back here in this position, re-engaging with work search activities. The primary or one of the primary functions of the unemployment insurance program is to help individuals who've been laid off get back to reemployment. And it has been a very challenging 12 to 13 months as we've navigated our way through this pandemic. I have no doubt for you as the claimants, it has been very challenging, very troubling time. Having to receive unemployment. I know it's been a lot of roadblocks, a lot of new programs. It's been difficult for a lot of individuals. We fully recognize that, and so that's kind of one of the reasons we're excited, though, to be here is to hopefully help individuals who are on unemployment meet that ultimate goal of getting back to reemployment. And all the evidence that we have at this point in time is indicating to us that it is safe to return to work. And there are jobs available to individuals to return to work. And as the vaccine distribution has accelerated, and as we've moved forward with the governor's reopening plans, we felt that we were in a position at this point in time to help re-engage with work search efforts. So with that, our primary goals here, as I mentioned, are to help individuals get back to full-time employment. We want to help protect businesses at this point in time, because what we're hearing from a lot of the employer community is that they have jobs available and they are struggling to fill those jobs. And we try to always balance those things here in the UI program. The fact that we have a program such as UI to help individuals who are transitioning between employment opportunities, but we also recognize that without the employers, we don't have a UI program. Employers are the ones that pay into the fund to help us have the benefits available for UI claimants in these situations. So with a lot of businesses out there struggling to find workers and struggling to expand their businesses, fill their orders, we recognize that we're at a point where we can try to assist both claimants getting back to work, employers seeking employees, and hopefully help individuals who are on unemployment get back to a full-time job. So really kind of excited about where we're at, like I said. However, we do recognize that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. The vast majority of questions that we've received from individuals on these town halls and separately are related to concerns regarding the individual circumstances that claimants are in about re-engaging in work search because either they have an underlying health condition or someone they're caring for has an underlying health condition. The individuals' daycares, childcare, schools may still be closed, or at some hybrid model of being in class, not in class. And so, recognizing that we are still in a state of emergency, recognizing that there's a lot of individuals still in these circumstances, and we are still in the middle of this pandemic. I shouldn't say in the middle. We're still managing our way through this pandemic. We want to continue to offer flexibilities for individuals who meet those COVID qualifying scenarios. And so we have built into our work search exceptions for individuals in those situations. So I know our webinar today is really focused on those exceptions, and I'll dive into those in more detail here in just a minute. I did just want to take the opportunity to again acknowledge the requirements that went into effect this week. So keep in mind for everyone that if you're filing for unemployment, you're always filing for the previous week. So this is the week of May 9th through May 15th. And you are required at this point to do a work search, and you will report that work search on your weekly claim that you file beginning next week and moving forward. You have to conduct the work search this week. However, you report that work search next week on your weekly claim filing. And the requirement is to do 3 job contacts every week. And what that means is you have to contact an employer who is hiring, and you have to submit an application for a position. and you need to submit that application for a job in whatever manner it is appropriate to do so for that given job. And if the employer is accepting applications over the telephone, that's great, and you can report that contact method. If they require you to do so online, then you need to apply for it online. If they require you to do it in person and you choose to apply for that job in person, you would need to do it in person. But at the end of the day, it's whatever mechanism the employer is accepting that application is how you would apply for that job. We've tried to be very clear with individuals that although a telephone application may be appropriate if the employer is willing to accept it, just picking up the phone and calling to determine whether an employer is hiring is not in and of itself sufficient. You have to actually apply for a job. Again, I know that this virtual town hall is really dedicated to the exceptions from Work Search, so I really want to get into those exceptions here. And Kyle, as you know, please feel free if it's appropriate to interrupt me if you want me to identify a particular area or dive deeper into a topic or answer a question that may be related to an exception. I'll try to give pause at each of them and let you jump in. I also know that Kyle is going to bring up potentially on our screen some information so you can kind of follow along, but I'm going to walk through the different exceptions that we have for Work Search and let you know the COVID qualifying scenarios that somebody could use to be exempt from Work Search at this time. The first one is that you've been instructed by a healthcare provider to quarantine because of COVID-19. We recognize that, you know, the virus is individuals are still getting the virus, and in those instances they're being asked to quarantine for a particular period of time and not interact you know, with other individuals in the public, and we don't want to we want to be able to support those individuals during that period if they're not able to work. So, you know, this I think is probably one of the more straightforward COVID qualifying scenarios. You know, if you've been instructed to quarantine because of contracting the virus or because you have been exposed and you have been recommended to quarantine, you can use this exception and not have to do Work Search for the weeks in which you've been asked to quarantine. And I apologize, I'm going to back up for just a second, and I'm going to acknowledge that how will you report this? You know, how will you identify what the COVID qualifying scenario for an exemption is? What we've done is we've modified our online claimant portal. So when you go to file your weekly claim online, it will ask you these questions. It will ask, have you been instructed by a healthcare provider to quarantine due to COVID-19? They are yes or no answers. And it goes through each of the COVID qualifying scenarios that we've identified, which would exempt you from a Work Search. If you click yes to these scenarios, then it will not require you to do Work Search activities. If you answer no to the questions, then you will not meet one of the qualifying exemptions and you will be required to enter Work Search activities. So I apologize, I got ahead of myself. I wanted to mention that's how this will be reported on your weekly Work Search, your weekly claim. So for individuals who've been filing via the IVR, over the past few weeks, you're going to have to transition back to filing online unless you have a return to work date from your employer, which we'll hopefully get into here in a minute. You will have to transition back to filing those claims online so you can enter those Work Search activities. Okay, back to the exceptions. Again, this one I think is probably the most straightforward. You've been asked to quarantine because of exposure to COVID-19. This could be, you know, you've been asked to quarantine from your primary physician, or the Department of Health has contacted you and recommended that you quarantine. Either of those scenarios would qualify you for an exemption. But keep in mind, if you click yes to this exception, it would only apply for the periods that you've been asked or instructed to quarantine. So, we would not expect a claimant to check yes to this question for more than, a 2-week period of time, for example. It's not something that you would be able to continue to click because because the disease itself, only lasts for, a few weeks at a time. So, just wanting to acknowledge that for claimants on the call. The second exemption would be you've been instructed by a healthcare provider to not return to work because you have a serious health condition. And returning to work at this time poses a significant health risk due to COVID-19. So here's where I think we get a lot of questions from individual claimants asking if, if their individual circumstance would qualify under this scenario. And as I mentioned last week on the town hall, and I apologize if anyone here is listening in again, for a second time from last week. I don't intend for my response to come across as unsympathetic or uncompromising to individual circumstances. I know that you all as claimants are doing your best to identify what is appropriate for you with your given situation, and you don't want to run afoul of the program requirements. And I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that, because at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that you don't run afoul of program requirements and you don't end up in a situation where we're having to question why you answered a particular way. So the hesitancy I have with being able to answer specific individual related questions and circumstances are, I'm not a healthcare expert. I'm not someone who can tell you whether your underlying medical condition makes it such that you have a significant health risk due to COVID-19. I would not presume to ever have the knowledge to be able to inform someone of that information. So, what I can tell you is this is the question that we're going to ask on the weekly claim. And we're going to ask you, have you been instructed by a healthcare provider to not return to work because of a serious health condition? And if you can answer yes to that question, then you can answer yes, and you would be exempt from Work Search. I saw, I think, one of the comments in the chat earlier. I kind of see them scrolling through my screen. Someone, I think, was commenting that they're taking care of elderly people and they're having to go into their homes, and so if those individuals have serious health conditions and you having to return to a public work environment at this time puts them at serious health risk, then that could be a yes. So at the end of the day, what I can tell you is our hope in implementing this exception is to be flexible with claimants. Again, the goal is we want to help individuals get back to full-time employment. We want to help individuals get back to either their former job or a new job, so they can, they can be back to working full-time. But we have to recognize that individuals are in these unique circumstances with underlying health conditions, and we want to be flexible. So if you have a recommendation from a healthcare provider to quarantine because of a significant health risk, we will accept that, and you can click yes. If we were to do a review of your claim, if you had answered yes and there was a question about whether or not you were eligible because of your answer, and we were doing a review, we would just look for you to provide us with a level of documentation that supports why you answered yes to that question. And if you can show us that a healthcare provider recommended that you quarantine or not return to work at that time, then we would accept that documentation and you would be fine. Kyle, I don't know if you've seen any questions that have come through that I can try to help flesh this exemption out further, but I want to caution the claimants just to understand, like I said, we're not healthcare providers, so it is a challenge for us to tell you because we don't want it to come across as a medical diagnosis, because it's not. All we can do is advise you to seek out the medical advice from the professionals. And if they're telling you that your underlying health condition is such that you shouldn't return to work, then we will accept that and you won't be required to do a work search at this time. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, it might be helpful to just run through the 5 questions kind of quickly and just kind of circle back. I have seen a lot of scenario-based questions. So this is my specific scenario. Obviously, we talked about that in a previous session, as you were saying, to determine whether or not you are exempt from work search, you will have to answer these 5 questions in these yes/no questions. And it's as you have said, claimants will need to self-attest that they are answering these questions truthfully, and that you should have documentation or proof if the department were to come back to them. But certainly, just in terms of what they'll have to provide starting on Sunday, it's really just answering these 5 questions in a yes or no manner. So if you want to just run through these 5 questions, I do want to make sure we get into some of the part-time questions as well as some of the suitable work questions as well.
Okay, absolutely. Let me run through the rest of these real quick. I think you bring up a great point, Kyle, and I want to make sure I answer. We acknowledge it. You're not required to provide us with documentation by Sunday. Please understand that. I'm not asking you to run out and get a fresh note or something from your healthcare provider and to provide that to the department. That's not what we're looking for. What as Kyle mentioned, this is a question that will be asked on the claimant portal. And if you answer yes to the question, you will be exempt from work search. So it will only be an issue or a concern if we're doing a review in the future, or there is a question about remaining eligibility, and we come back to you and say, hey, you've provided us with this answer. Can you provide us with a little documentation to help support it? So understand that you're not going to be required to provide us with anything come Sunday. You will just have to answer the questions. And so, like, for example, I apologize to this individual. I just see it on my screen right here. But, the person says they have COPD, wearing a mask hinders their ability to breathe. Are they exempt from search? Again, I can't tell you whether COPD is a significant health that puts you at a significant health risk because of COVID-19. That's something that you need to get that information from your healthcare provider. And if your healthcare provider is telling you your COPD puts you at a significant health risk because of COVID and you should not return to work at this point in time, then we would accept that and you can answer the question yes. So I want to jump to Kyle. If you want to go to our next slide, I'll run through the remaining questions relatively quickly, and then we can get into some other issues. So as you can see here, I'll jump to number 5 first, just because I think it piggybacks off what we were just talking about. Are you caring for a family member who has been instructed by a healthcare provider to quarantine due to COVID? Similarly, if you are caring for someone who is at a serious health risk, you can answer yes to that question. So, it is kind of 2 parts. Or do you have an underlying healthcare that puts you at significant risk because of COVID-19, or is a family member who you are caring for? There was one question that says someone's spouse has an underlying health condition. If you're caring for that individual, then you could answer yes to this question. The other 2 are related to children. Are you the primary caregiver for a child whose childcare is unavailable as a direct result of COVID-19? Or number 4 there, are you the primary caregiver for a child who's attending virtual or remote school as a direct result of COVID-19? Again, I think those are relatively straightforward questions. I think the thing that I would point you to is as a direct result of COVID-19. So we've received some questions from individuals in the past saying, I've chosen to homeschool my child, because I don't want them, the school's open, but I've chosen to take them out of school and homeschool them at this point in time. At that point, we would not consider that to qualify because, the child care or the primary school is open. You have chosen to remove them, and so we can't consider that a valid reason to exempt you from work search. Now, again, I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of concern out there from a lot of individuals about, their children getting back into the classroom, and I understand that, and I sympathize with those situations. There's nothing that prohibits you from looking for work that is virtual in nature and allows you to continue to work from home, for example. We're not telling you that you're no longer eligible for unemployment benefits. What we're telling you is, unfortunately, the law was written to say, the child care or the school is closed because of COVID-19. And if the school is now back open and they're complying with the guidelines that have been set forth by the state and federal government, then, we as a program, have the requirement for individuals to be looking for work, and you have to meet that requirement. And so, again, there's nothing that prohibits you from being flexible with your work search. You can look for work that meets your individual circumstances as long as it is suitable work, and we'll get into that here in just a second. So just keep in mind, be flexible with what you're looking for. Just because you're required to look for work doesn't mean you need to be looking for in-person work, for example, or you could be looking for work that meets your circumstance. So with that, Kyle, you kind of mentioned where you want to go next. If you want me to jump into part-time, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't want to, distress anybody who's asked a very specific question in your scenario. We've gone over the 5, exemption questions that you'll be asked on Sunday. And I think, Cam, you've pretty much said, you're going to be self-attesting to this, and we're asking you to consider it from your personal, circumstances. Look at these 5 questions, think about your circumstance. Is it applicable for you? And certainly I would ask you to take that into consideration. So I don't want to speak out of turn, Cam, but if you have anything to add to that, but if not, we'll pivot over to part-time. There's been a number of questions on that as well.
Let's pivot. I'll go to part-time. Again, I want to reiterate, I can't reiterate enough what you just said. I know that there's a lot of concern from the public about individual circumstances. And what I can tell you right now is these are the questions we're going to ask. And if you feel that you have justification for answering yes to those questions, then you can do that. And we're not going to, we're not going to come do an audit on next Monday, to review. What we're going to do is allow you to self-attest to those circumstances. And if later on there's a question, you just need to provide us with the supporting documentation to show that you met that exception. I do want to touch on one question, which I think is really important, and I haven't addressed it in the past, and I apologize, but I think it is really important to know. Someone asked, what happens if they answer yes, and then we do a review later on, and it turns out maybe the answer was incorrect. At that point, we would have to make a determination of whether you are potentially eligible for a different program. So keep in mind, a lot of the individuals, what we're talking about here are for individuals who are filing in the unemployment insurance program. We're going to have a PUA town hall tomorrow. So if we did a review and we found out you didn't meet that situation, one of 2 things could happen. I mean, we would determine whether or not you need to move into the PUA program, because you meet a different scenario. You may not be eligible for UI, but you could be eligible for PUA. We would have to make that determination. If it's just a misunderstanding, or there's just maybe you don't apply over here, maybe it's not, doesn't fit the exact situation, but there's a scenario in PUA that would qualify you. So we could look to see whether or not you need to just move into a different program. I will be honest though, for individuals who are here, and we have you attest that you're providing accurate information, because if we make a determination that you have misrepresented yourself to the department, then there could be a determination that you are ineligible for benefits and you would be required to pay them back. What do I mean by that? Let's say you claim that you have an underlying health condition that puts you at serious risk of COVID-19, and you have zero information to support that. Like there's no medical history, there's no directive from a doctor. We ask you, hey, why did you attest to this question? And you're not able to provide us with any evidence that there is an underlying health risk. We would likely determine that you've misrepresented your situation with the department. If you say that you have daycare is closed, and you have to remain home because you're the primary caregiver for a child, and it comes come to find out that you don't have children. I know I'm using a little bit of extreme examples. Our goal is to be as flexible as we can, and I want to assure individuals that our goal here is not to remove people from unemployment or to come back later and target individuals who may have misunderstood. That's not our position at all. But you need to have a justification for why you're answering those questions. And if at the end of the day we do a review and there is none, then we could find that you've misrepresented yourself to collect benefits and you'd be required to pay those back. Let's jump into part-time work real quick. I did see some questions coming in on part-time. Individuals who are working part-time, we try to incentivize people to do that. Keep in mind that if you're working part-time, you're still eligible for the $300 federal FPUC supplement. So just because your unemployment is reduced by a certain amount because you're working and earning wages, you still would be eligible for that additional $300. Essentially, on the part-time side, if you're working part-time, you get to count that as a job contact. So if you have 2 part-time jobs, that's 2 job contacts every week you don't have to do. You only have to do 1 more job contact. If you're working 1 part-time job, then you enter that in as a job contact each week, and you only have to do 2 additional work searches. I know there were a few questions coming in about, do I have to work or do I have to search for work that is at an hourly rate lower than your current part-time job? I'm not saying that you have to do that, no. And we're not saying that you must quit your part-time job to go look for work. We don't want anyone to have to quit their job, full-time or part-time. I don't want you, if your former employer is hoping to bring you back, we want you to be able to go back to your former employer. But what we have to recognize here is there are a lot of jobs available, and if there's work that you could do that could supplement your part-time job until you're able to go back to full-time employment, or if there's work you could do in the interim to supplement until you're able to get back to your former job or get back to full-time employment, that's what we need you to do or to be looking for at this given time. We did an employer town hall yesterday, and I tried to be very clear with employers that they need to be understanding and flexible and recognize that while they may be in a situation where they can't bring their people back yet full time, and they're hoping to do that for their employees, they're going to have claimants coming to them who may apply for the job that may only need 10 hours a week. They may only be able to work for the next 4 weeks until they go back to their full-time job. And employers need to understand the scenarios that claimants are in and be flexible with them. If an employer is able to have you come on and work 20 hours a week for the next 2 months, that's an employee that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so it's an area where we try to be flexible. We want you to we don't want you to have to leave your part-time employment. We just want you to go look for jobs which will supplement that part-time employment to help get you back to full-time. Which is, again, the ultimate goal, is to help individuals get back to full-time employment. And if you can, look for work and then you find another part-time job, which helps carry you through. Now you're working 2 part-time jobs, 20 hours a week each, until you're able to go back to your former position. That's great. That's what we're hoping to be able to accomplish here. So, I want to acknowledge that part-time work, you can report it as a job contact, and you're not required to look for work that will force you to leave your part-time job. You can be open and honest with employers about what your availability is. I'm working 32 hours. Monday through Thursday, I'm only able for 8 hours on Fridays, and that will count as a valid job contact. So we don't want you to mislead anyone, and I certainly don't want you to feel pressure to have to leave the current job that you have. We're just asking you to look for supplemental work opportunities that can help you get back to full-time employment. So I want to touch on that on the part-time, and Kyle, if there's anything you want me to try to flesh out there, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I had a question too about what is actually considered to be part-time. What is that hourly level? Someone asked if seasonal work was considered to be suitable work. I mean, I think that's suitable work, so we can jump into that in a few minutes. But just in terms of kind of some part-time stuff, what is actually considered to be part-time?
So what our rules consider to be full-time, I'll answer the question kind of in the opposite. I'll tell you what full-time work is. Full-time is 35 hours or more a week. So individuals who are working part-time and filing for unemployment, they are required to report their hours worked and wages earned on a weekly basis. And we use that to calculate what their weekly benefit amount is for a given week. And if you report 35 hours, then you would be considered full-time employed, whether that's with one employer or 2 employers combined, 5 employers combined. I mean, you have to report all the hours that you've worked. And so if you get to 35 hours, you would be considered full-time employed. What we do is, when you're reporting your hours and your wages to us, we look at the wages that you've earned, and we disregard 50% of them, and then we deduct the other 50% from your weekly benefit amount. So there's not a specific definition of part-time, but what it means is if you're not full-time employed, 35 hours or more a week, or earning enough wages to make you ineligible, which would be 2 times your weekly benefit amount, would consider you to be full-time employed, then you would have to look for work.
Great, thank you, Cam.
Yep.
Let's see here. Just wanted to clarify some things in the chat, and I was trying to go through and answer some of the questions. And Cam, for your own benefit, you're going to want to look at the published section of the chat as opposed to the new. But just some questions around, how does that count as a work search? And again, for those wondering, I know some information went out early on, but a part-time job is only considered to be can be considered to be one of your contacts. You aren't exempt from work search, or you don't have to. It's just considered to be one of your 3 a week. But I think if you've already talked about it, Cam, I may have missed it as I was going through the chat. But there was a question too, like, if I have 20 hours what is it that I need to get to, in terms of if I'm part-time or if I've been reduced in my hours, what's the goal there? If I'm working 30 hours because my employer has reduced me down to 30, I was answering a question in the chat, really just saying you need to get back to that 35 hours or more, like getting back to that full-time employment. So I don't know if you can provide a little more detail or some clarification to any of those points, but happy to look through the chat and find some more part-time questions.
I'll try to answer it. I mean, an individual can file for unemployment if the individual has seen their hours reduced, their hours or their wages reduced. So I'm trying to figure out how to respond to the individual. What work would get you back to full-time employment? I mean, again, I think that's the goal of unemployment, right? It is to provide wage replacement to individuals who've lost their job or had their hours reduced through no fault of their own. And so the goal here is to help you get to full-time employment again, or back to employment that you had prior to filing for unemployment. So as a general matter, if your history is working part-time and you're back to working part-time, you're not unemployed any longer. If prior to filing for unemployment, you have a history of working 20 hours a week and you're now back to working 20 hours a week, then there would be a question of whether you're unemployed in the definition of what is someone who's unemployed. So there's no set goal from the department's perspective about how many hours you need to be working in a given week. It's really a question about if you're collecting unemployment, then, and you don't have a COVID qualifying scenario, but even think pre-pandemic, if you're collecting unemployment, then you need to be doing work search in order to get you back to a level of employment that no longer requires you to be filing for unemployment. If that's 35 hours, then because that's what the UI program considers to be full-time, then that's what we would hope you'd be able to get to. If you continue to have reduced hours under 35 hours a week and you don't make enough in wages to consider yourself full-time, again, keeping in mind full-time is also considered 2 times your weekly benefit amount. So if your weekly benefit amount is $300 and you earn $600 in a week, then you would be considered back to full-time employment. Then if you're still filing and you're still collecting benefits, then you would need to be doing job contacts and looking for work.
That's perfect. Thank you, Cam. Let's see here, just in terms of, I do want to transition to suitable work and just try to explain that in our final 15 minutes here as I've been trying to answer questions. One thing that I did see, Cam, in terms of part-time was, can it be entered week after week as a valid job contact? I know that we've said that you can't apply for a new job, more than, the same job more than once in a 5-week period, but you just answered the question simply that it can be entered multiple weeks and kind of how to enter it and all those things as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so I want to jump to suitable work, and then I want to circle back to a few things if I can, and I may run over a little time. And for the individuals who are here on the live event, if you want to stick around, I want to talk a little bit about some work search exceptions too, things that you can do as an individual to exempt yourself from work search that are not COVID-19 related, some other resources that we have available to you. I fully recognize in some communication with some claimants offline that I probably haven't done a really good job of expressing to people some other options that are available to them at this period. So And then I also want to circle back around to schools. I saw some messages in the chat where there was, it didn't feel that we had adequately really discussed that topic. And so I just want to circle back to that a little bit. So suitable work. Suitable work, it's one of those terms where, it feels like it has a specific definition that you have to, check all these boxes to meet. It really doesn't. Suitable work is work that you have the qualifications to do. And so that means the knowledge, the experience, the expertise to be able to perform. And that's kind of half of it. Other things that we would look at to determine whether work is suitable is the hourly rate of pay or the salary. Is it within the range that you worked prior to becoming unemployed? We would also look at the distance between, where you live and where the job is located. We would look at the hours, if you're used to working first shift and the job that's being offered to you is third shift, we, probably wouldn't consider that to be suitable. If you are looking for jobs during the day because your kids are at school, you don't have childcare in the evenings, we're not going to require you to accept a job that, requires you to work at night. So there's really a kind of, it's fact-specific scenario where we're going to look at the information in totality to determine whether something is suitable. What I can so kind of two ways I look at this. From your perspective, from the claimant perspective, you should apply. You can't apply for jobs which you don't have the skill set to do. If you're not a licensed attorney, you can't apply for a job as an attorney at a law firm and consider that to be a valid job contact. Same thing with any other profession. If you don't have the knowledge, the experience, the licensing requirements, if there are any, to do that work, then it would not be considered a valid job contact. On the flip side of that, from the department's perspective, you cannot refuse, you as a claimant cannot refuse an offer of suitable work. And so what is deemed suitable? And that's where, again, we would look at the totality of the facts to determine, again, do you have the qualifications to do the work? Is it within the range of hourly or salary that you had prior to the pandemic? Is it within the normal hours that you work? Is it within a reasonable, commute for you? It's not there's not a black and white answer. I can't tell you that, 35 miles is too far of a commute, therefore it wouldn't be suitable. That's not how we would examine a situation like that. We would look at, what are the jobs that you had previously? If you're used to traveling for an hour every day and you refuse a job because, it's 45 minutes in the opposite direction, we might not consider that to be, or we might consider that to be a suitable job opportunity and that you would need to take it. So we would really look at your history to determine whether something is suitable for you or not. We would not require someone in filing for unemployment to immediately take a drastic pay cut. But what we would look at is as time goes along, as you are further and further on unemployment, is the job that's being offered to you within the prevailing wage of that industry? And if it's within the prevailing wage of that industry, then it looks more like it's going to be suitable work. And you would need to be able to demonstrate for you, if you refuse that job, why it was not suitable for you in that given moment. So I want to plug, a resource that's available to you. I didn't really get the opportunity to mention this on one of our last town halls, but if you're struggling to find jobs in your area or in your field, contact our workforce development division, because that is part of their mission, is to help individuals match your situation, your circumstance with the labor market information in your area to help match jobs for you that you may not be aware exists. In our Vermont Job Link system, there are over 6,000 jobs available right now. And so that doesn't even include all the jobs available across the state. So, if you're struggling in your work search efforts, I would really advise you to, reach out to our workforce development partners, because they may be aware of something that's available that, you may not be aware of. They work with employers all the time to try to find individuals who meet the employer's needs, and that job may not be posted, or you may not be aware of it, and they can help you. So if you're struggling to find suitable work in your area, or work that you deem suitable, I would advise you to work with our workforce development team to help you with your work search efforts. The separate thing, Kyle, and if I may just keep going, I want to jump into some additional exceptions here that I think could help some individuals. So, kind of continuing on the theme of suitable work, some questions that came up recently were whether individuals, whether there were jobs available for individuals in a particular field. You may work in a particular industry that may be, really impacted by COVID-19. You're not able to fully re-engage in that work. And, on one of the previous town halls, I said that in that situation, you may want to work with our workforce development division to find another career opportunity. And so I want to acknowledge two things there. I mean, one, again, I don't want to come across as unsympathetic to an individual's specific circumstance. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm saying your career is no longer viable and therefore you need a new one. That's not what I'm saying. And so I want to talk about a few options that could be available. What I was getting at was saying, if you're in a career that is a low demand occupation, now may be the time for you to look towards different opportunities towards a high demand occupation that could not only, allow you to get off unemployment benefits, but it could also put you on a path towards a more stable financial future moving forward. So my comment was more just a recognition that, there are individuals in different unique circumstances, and now may be the time for you as an individual, if there are no career opportunities available at this point, to get retraining into a new career opportunity with high demand occupations that can help you get towards financial stability. So a few things I want to add to this. I mean, and this goes for all claimants. I mean, if you want to transition to a new career opportunity, or if you want to continue with training opportunities in your current field to make you more appealable to employers, you can work with our workforce development division, and they can help you identify training opportunities. The benefit as it relates to UI in that scenario is, if you are in an approved training course, and here's where on the previous town halls, I didn't really do a good job of articulating these opportunities. And so I apologize for people who may be listening for a second time. If you are in an approved training course or program, either to transition into a new career or to upskill yourself in the current career that you're in to, again, make yourself more appealable to employers, you can be exempt from work search while you're in that training course or program. So, I'm making the comment to all claimants to say, if you're struggling to find employment opportunities in the given field you're looking at, reach out to our Workforce Development Division, because they can help you get training in order to, like I said, new career opportunity, or to help yourself learn that additional certificate that you need, or just to take some training which will help you in your current career occupation. And if you do that, not only does the Workforce Development Division have funds available to help pay for that training, but if you're in an approved training course, you can then apply for, and in the vast majority of instances, you can be waived from a work search requirement while you remain in that training course or program. So I wanted to make sure I was very clear on this call with claimants who may be in that situation where you don't know what the valid opportunities are available. You have this opportunity available to you where you can get assistance not only to pay for that training, but you can continue to collect unemployment and be waived from work search while you do so. In addition, there are training opportunities, or I should say, there are opportunities to extend your unemployment benefits while you remain on a training course or program. So if you get into a training course, Workforce Development's helping to pay for it, you're collecting unemployment, but your unemployment's going to run out, you can apply for and potentially be given an extension on your unemployment benefits while you remain in that training course or program. So I wanted to identify that as an opportunity for people. Separately, two other quick things I'll mention, and then I'll circle back to the school closures. We have two other things I wanted to mention on work search. One, I saw a question that came through earlier. An individual who may be, disabled or have some type of, limitation on their capacity to do a valid work search. What we do allow are individuals who are working with vocational rehabilitation. And if you're working with our Voc Rehab partners, for example, and they're helping you find, a work opportunity that will, work with your individual circumstance, we would allow you to do work search through the Voc Rehab partners, and we wouldn't require you to necessarily do 3 job contacts a week. So that's another one I want to comment on. Is available to individuals who may need some assistance in just finding a job that will help work for them in their individual circumstances. So that's available to you. I also want to mention we have a self-employment assistance program. This is one that actually came up recently to me directly from a claimant who was asking about it, and I recognize that we didn't mention it on the last town hall. If you are starting a business during this period, let's say you were laid off and you think now is the time for you to branch out on your own and start a business, we can put you into an approved self-employment plan and allow you to continue to file and collect unemployment while you are trying to establish your own business practice. And so I wanted to mention that, and we'll try to get some additional information available, but just know that our Workforce Development Division is really a resource that you can use if you want to explore any of these opportunities. They can assist you in getting the information that you need so we can make sure you're all set and you can continue to collect unemployment. So with that, Kyle, unless there's something you want me to address, I want to circle back to school closures, but I'll take a pause. I know I just gave a lot of information, but if there's anything you saw come through that you want me to address specifically, let me know.
Yeah, no, I think we can address the school question. I did have a couple of questions on return to work dates, but if we want to get into that, we certainly can after the schools questions that you wanted to bring up as well.
Okay, so I just want to talk about the school closures. The questions there are you the primary caregiver for a child whose child care is unavailable, or are you the primary caregiver for a child who's attending virtual or remote school as a direct result of COVID-19? Again, as I mentioned earlier, the key words there are as a direct result of COVID-19. So What I've mentioned in the past are if your school is closed such that you cannot find economic opportunities that will support you in your given scenario, then you can click yes to those questions. I mean, some examples are straightforward. You have a toddler and the child care that you send your kid to is closed and you can't find additional child care opportunities for them. You would be able to answer yes to that question. If there is a school that remains closed or is mandating virtual schooling, then you can answer yes to that question. One thing we get a lot is, what if it's closed this many days a week versus that many days a week? What I can tell you is, we would hope that you as a claimant would be looking for work that would be suitable for you in your given circumstance. Part of the reason we're rolling out Work Search at this time is because we want individuals to recognize that these exemptions will expire within the coming weeks to months. And so we're trying to prepare individuals to be ready to go back to work when these exemptions expire. For example, if your kid is doing virtual schooling and you're not able to get back to employment because of that, that exemption will go away once the school closes at the end of the school year. You will no longer be able to claim that exemption and you will be required to look for work. So we're hoping that by rolling this out now, you're able to look for work that will accommodate your individual scenario. For individuals, for example, I know that there are some hybrid models where kids are virtual for 1 week, in the classroom for another week. We would expect for the weeks that the individual is in the classroom that you're looking for work that week because you are the exemption that is COVID related doesn't apply for that given time period. If you are doing some type of virtual 2 or 3 days a week and that is not allowing you to look for work, then you can answer yes to that question. What we are going to look at if we're doing a review and you've clicked that, your school is closed or your kid's home, working virtually as a direct result of COVID-19, and it's clear that that's the case, we can find out whether the school is mandating virtual services. Then we're not going to ask any further questions. But if you answer that every week and we're doing a review and we find out that no, the school actually was open, you are just choosing not to have your kid go back to school, or the school was closed, like I said, 1 week, open the next week, and you were clicking yes to that box for every week, that's where we would do further research and do further investigation into your individual circumstance to determine, whether or not the answers you were providing were accurate. It has to be as a direct result of COVID-19, and it has to be mandated that your child in that instance is required to be remote, which didn't allow you to be back in the workforce. So I hope that helps provide some clarity. I know there's a lot of gray area here. We're doing everything we can to provide additional guidance. I know we submitted a lot of information out to claimants just yesterday with further guidance on work search requirements. We're taking all of the feedback from these sessions, like I said, to update our information on our website. At the end of the day, it's again self-attestation, and if your school is requiring virtual learning that doesn't allow you to look for work, then you can answer yes to that question. But I will just point out that the exception that's in the law and the exception that we're required to implement is it has to be a direct result of COVID-19. So, for individuals who, if your school is open and you're choosing not to send your children, and you're choosing to homeschool them instead, then you would still need to look for work. Again, you can be flexible in the work that you're looking for, but in that instance, you're going to be required to look for work because the circumstances that you're in, you are choosing to withhold your child at that point in time. And, unfortunately, we're obligated by our federal rules to require that all individuals collecting unemployment be able and available to work. And in this case, also actively seeking work. So I just wanted to be able to circle back to that and hopefully provide some additional context, for that question.
Thanks, Cam. I don't know if it's a quick answer, but we may have to. I did want to address. There was a question about individuals who have had trouble filing through the claimant portal in recent weeks, and kind of the information that we want to provide to them. Whether it, there are a multitude of different circumstances. I know there are, different circumstances that can lead to somebody not being able to file online and having to go through, the IVR or different having to call the claimant assistance center or what have you. I know that we are requiring claimants to submit this online, and I know that we are working to ensure that that is indeed going to be able to happen. So I don't know if you have anything more to add on that, but I think everyone should just know that our teams are working to ensure that you will be able to access the claimant portal online to be able to enter work search activity. But I didn't know if Cam, if you had anything to add to that.
No, I don't think I have anything to add in particular. This is another one of those situations where I can only be honest. I know that there's a lot of frustration with our technology, and I know there's a lot of frustration with the department's responses about our technology limitations. At the end of the day, we collectively, the department, our staff, you as the claimants, we're unfortunately in the situation where we're limited in a lot of the technology that we have access to right now. So I would just say if individuals are having issues filing online, your first step is to call our claim center. I know that can be a frustrating experience. We continue to work with our claim center partners to try and provide better service. We meet with them every day to discuss issues, resolution of issues, training their staff, etc. So we are always making efforts to improve our service. And, I know that there's still a lot of frustration about people's interactions with our call center, and just know that we are trying to do better. We're hoping in the near future to be able to work towards modernizing our claimant portal. That doesn't resolve issues that you're having right now. I fully understand that. But our hope is to provide the best service that we can. And unfortunately, in a lot of instances, we're limited by the technology that we have and the frustrations that causes. If people are having an issue, they can call the claim center. We're trying to work with them so they're aware that work search is going to be required beginning on Sunday. We are trying to push back to ensure that people are able to file online. If you're not able to file online, though, we're trying to work with the call center staff to make sure they either know how to troubleshoot the problems, or if it's some barrier that's prohibiting you from being able to file online, if you don't have a computer, for example, or you don't have internet, allowing for a hardship waiver for those situations. I will put the plug in to the claimants who are on the call. The busiest day of the week at our call center still remains Monday morning. If you try to call the claim center at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, you are likely to have to wait in order to connect with an agent. We see our call center wait times drop dramatically when you get even into Tuesday afternoon to Wednesday and then throughout the rest of the week. Remember that you have between Sunday and Friday at 4:30 to file your weekly claim. So it does not have to be in on Sunday morning. We process payments on a daily basis. So if you're not able to get in until Wednesday, we'll process that payment Wednesday night and issue it out on Thursday. But just know that, if part of the frustration is having to wait on hold to connect with an agent, and I know that's on the grand scheme of things, that's usually towards the bottom of the frustration list. But just know that Monday still remains our highest call volume day, and waiting until even Tuesday is sometimes better for you to be able to connect with an agent and potentially troubleshoot your problem.
Thanks, Cam. Just one quick question before we conclude today's session. Just a question around return to work dates. Claimants, are saying, I have a return to work date that's June 1st. In terms of, I know we've talked about in the past that it's 10 weeks. In order to be exempt, your return to work date has to be 10 weeks from when you established your initial claim, which if you've been filing since March of last year, certainly that 10 weeks has come and gone. But, just in terms, those individuals who have a return to work date in the near future, we would be asking them to complete the typical work search. Is that correct? Or is there anything more that you'd like to add in terms of information that, maybe somebody who has a very close return to work date, in the next several weeks might need to know?
Yeah, so correct. The rules that we have are, if a claimant has a return to work date that is within 10 weeks of the filing of their initial claim, then they are exempt from doing a work search. And so the same rule applies in this situation. What we've had a lot of, frustration, I think, from claimants are individuals in these circumstances where they may have a return to work date that's a few weeks out, but they're not within the 10-week period, or they may be working 32 hours a week, 33 hours a week, so they're not quite at 35. But they're hoping to be back to full-time within 4 weeks, within the coming months, etc. Why are they required to do a work search? And, in the conversations I've had with individuals, I think there's been an understanding of both sides of the spectrum. And, I try to articulate to individuals that, we can't allow for individualized exceptions for every single circumstance, because in that situation the exceptions swallow the rule, and nobody would be required to do a work search. And there are additional reasons that we have to require work search activities. And so we are examining this one issue, though, I will be honest, to determine whether or not it's more appropriate to be a little more flexible with individuals who may have a return to work date within a few weeks. But for right now, as of today, we would require individuals to continue to do a work search between now and when they're able to get back to full-time employment. And again, I would advise you that we're not asking you to lie to an employer who you're applying for a job. If you're making an application and the employer calls you and wants to offer you a job, you can tell them, I have my full-time job that I'm going back to on June 1st or July 1st. and you can be honest with that employer. And again, we've tried to comment to employers on the other side that they should be flexible in that situation. If they need the assistance and need the help, then they should be trying to bring on as much individuals as they can during that period. And our hope is that you as a claimant would want to take that job opportunity, even if it's just for a few weeks. But if it's able to get you back to work as a bridge to getting back to full-time employment, either at your former place of work or a new opportunity, that's the goal. That's what we're hoping to be able to get to. So nobody's asking you to quit your job. Nobody's asking you to go out and find another job to replace the job that you're going back to. Maybe in doing your work search, you're able to find something that's actually better for you, a higher salary pay or more flexible work hours, able to telecommute, able to, be flexible with your work hours. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to find a better employment, then that's great, and that's what we hope individuals are able to find. To get back to just the basis of the question, though, Kyle, yes, if there is a return to work date that is not within 10 weeks of an initial claim, the individual would be required to look for work. We understand that there are circumstances where that's going to be very frustrating for individuals, and we are looking into this in particular, but at this point in time, we've made the decision that those individuals do need to look for work during that period. And again, we're not asking you to quit your job. We're just asking you to try to find something that will help get you between now and when that job comes back full time.
Great. Thank you so much, Cam. I appreciate you taking an extra 20 minutes to kind of go through some of these questions, as I know it's a great information, and I appreciate you being able to share that. I do just want to, in wrapping today's session, Cam obviously can give you the opportunity to talk through anything, but I don't want to steal your time as well. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. We are continuing to update our website with resources and information. This is the UI Claimant Work Search page. You can actually reach that by go to our website, labor.vermont.gov, and clicking the red bar at the top. You can reach this page. That has resources on how to create a Vermont JobLink account, how to search for jobs, tutorials in Vermont JobLink, as well as recordings to our past sessions, as well as links to our future sessions should they be posted and available, as well as our frequently asked questions and just more information on work search as a whole as we update that. So I would encourage you to go to that page. As I said, today's session has been recorded. The link will be found on this page that I'm showing now. Appreciate all of you for joining us this afternoon. Certainly as you go through the week, would encourage you to check on this page if you do have specific questions or reference, whether it's the how to enter a work search webinar that we did yesterday morning, as you prepare for the need to actually enter your work search starting next week or on Sunday. So with that, Cam, if you don't have anything additional, I just want to thank you again for taking the time this afternoon, and thank everybody for joining us here, and look forward to continuing to share information with you in a multitude of ways and through multiple resources as well. So Cam, thank you so much and for joining us, and thank everybody as well.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, everyone. Thank you again, and hope you have a great rest of your day.